आज हम बात करने वाले हैं एक ऐसे सॉफ्टवेयर की जिसका यूज़ अगर आप करना सीख जाते हो तो आप मंथली के 20 से 25,000 रुपए ईज़िली कमा सकते हो। क्योंकि जैसे कि आप सभी लोगों को पता है आज के टाइम पे कंटेंट क्रिएशन बहुत बूम पर है। तो अगर आप ये सॉफ्टवेयर चलाना सीख जाते हो तो इसकी मदद से आप यूट्यूब थंबनेल, बैनर, सोशल मीडिया पोस्ट, एड्स यहाँ तक कि हर किसी की पोस्टर्स बना सकते हो। आपको बताने वाला हूँ बेसिक टू एडवांस फ़ोटोशॉप। और अगर आपको ये वीडियो पसंद आए तो इस वीडियो को लाइक ज़रूर करें।
Welcome to Photoshop. I know everybody knows why Photoshop is used. It has many use cases: retouching photos, enhancing them, manipulating photos, creating logos, drawing, and the list goes on. It is a pixel-based software, while Adobe Illustrator is a vector-based software. It edits and creates images made up of pixels. We're going to use it for creating banners. We did it using Adobe Illustrator, and it's time to do that with this software. Let me clarify that I'm only teaching the tools that we are going to use for creating banners. It's a very widely used software because of all the features and tools it gives to a user. That's why I'm not going to explain each tool. We are going straightly to the point and learn the tools we would use the most. If you think you need a detailed explanation, I could create one course for only Adobe Photoshop. So let's just go for the introduction. The first thing we have to know is how to create a new file or open a new photo. This is the welcome page. As every website, when you click on the icon, you're going to go to the workspace or the home page. This is the workspace. You can go back with home page by clicking on this home icon. For the first time, it is asking you to drag a photo here or to start creating a new document. Creating a new file is almost the same as creating a file in Adobe Illustrator. You have to click on New File to create a new document. On the top, there are different presets. You can use any of them to start. The preset details is to the right. On the top, you have to name the document. You're changing the measurements right here. After selecting the measurements, you can start with defining the size. Currently, it is set to centimeters. You can change that to any of the following, like to pixels. We have the orientation to make it landscape or portrait. When changing the orientations, you are reversing the height and the width. You can set the width and the height right here. I'm just going to go with the default Photoshop size. The resolution is set to pixel per centimeters. It's defining how much pixels you want to have per centimeters. As much more you're adding, it is going to give you a better result, but the default is set on 300 point per inch or 118.11 pixels per centimeters. You can change the resolution measurements right here. Pixel per inch or pixel per centimeters. Then there is the color mode. Bitmap, graphical, RGB or CMYK, each of them having different usage and providing different range of colors. Then there is the background contents. White, black, the background color, which is set earlier if you have used Photoshop to work on any photo, and is going to use that background color. I'll show you the background color later. Then we have transparent. Transparent means having no color. Finally, you can pick up any favorite color as a custom color. After you set all of these, you can press on Create to create your new document. This is the actual interface of creating anything you imagine. First, let's make sure we have the same interface. Probably mine and yours have different interface. Go to Window, Workspace. From the list, assure yourself that you have Essentials ticked and click on Reset Essentials. Now we have the same workspace. This is the contextual taskbar. It is helping you to import an image quickly and to access the properties, but we don't need it, so we will hide it. Go to Window, and at the bottom here uncheck the contextual taskbar. The next thing we have to know is how to open a photo inside Photoshop. There are different ways to do that. The first way is when we are in the welcome page. First, let's close this document and we are in the welcome page. Now, as it says, drag and drop a file here. Let me find my file and drag that here. Drag the file and drop it here in Photoshop. This was the first way. The next way is really easy. Go to File and say Open. The shortcut for that is Ctrl and O. You can open a file in the welcome page as well. When you're in the welcome page, click on Open. Now find out where your photo or your project is and open it. This was a quick introduction to this amazing software. See you in the next lecture. Both in Photoshop and Illustrator we have menu. The menu is used to carry out specific functions, like as we created a new file from the File menu. Or we can add effects to an image by going to Filter and adding a filter. For example, we are adding Gaussian blur to the image. Filter, blur, and Gaussian blur. Sometimes we accidentally remove a panel. For instance, we accidentally deleted Layers panel. To bring it back, we must go to Window and from the menu here find Layers. At the bottom of the menus, we have Option bar. Option bar is related to a tool we are working with. Any tool we are using from the toolbar, the options of that tool will appear here on the top. For instance, pick up the rectangle tool. You can see the options of the rectangle tool right here. For example, the fill color, the stroke width, and more. The next thing I'm gonna show you is how to save a file. First, let's add a change to the file. I'll add a polar coordinates effect to it. Go to Filter, Distort, and Polar Coordinates. You will get something interesting like this. The saving is easily done by going to File and saying Save. We have 3 types of save here. We will explore each of them in a minute. First, we have Simply Save, and if we click on it, this window will show up. It's image type saving option, as it says JPEG options. If we say OK, we are saving this file on the existing image and it will change the actual photo. Accept the settings and let's see if it is changed or not. You can see it is changed in the original photo. Let's go back with Ctrl and Z. Create a new document. I say Ctrl and N for the shortcut. I will choose the default Photoshop size and say Create. Take the brush tool expand the size, then draw something in the canvas. Now let's save the file and see what will happen. Go to File and say Save. You have the file name here. You can name it right here. Here are the types you can save a file as. It provides all image types. Finally, select the location. I'm just choosing on desktop project files. Then, after all these settings are done, say Save. Let's just go back and do the same thing, but this time create a new layer. Draw something here. Go to Save or just press Ctrl and S. We added a new layer, then we drew something. When we want to save it, we only get these 4 types. That's because only these 4 types are capable of saving an image with all its layers, like PSD Photoshop document. Let's save it and see the difference. Make sure the Maximize Compatibility is checked, then press OK. Now let's close it and open it back. Next time I wanted to continue my drawing, I'll open that photo again. Go to File, Open, and open the file. You can see it has all the layers we add while working on it. But how should we save it if we want it maybe on our mobile phones or social media? At this time, we have to save it as. Save as means saving a duplicate or a copy of the current file. Go to File and see Save As. The same challenge. We are getting only these 4 types. To tackle down this challenge, we have to say Save a Copy. Now I will get all these types back. I can choose any of them and save it, like JPEG. Then save it. After choosing all the JPEG options, click on OK. I have saved it earlier, so I won't do that again. There is one more way of saving your files, and that is Export As. Go to File, Export, and Export As. This way of exporting and saving only provides these 3 types: PNG, JPEG, and GIF. It is providing the ability to double or triple the file size. Finally, you will set up all your image settings, then press Export. Choose the location where you want to save it, then press Save. In the next lesson, my workspace is going to change a little bit. You have to know that in Photoshop, we are dealing a lot with layers, and this panel importance requires more space. So I have to move this layer panel to somewhere that I have more space. I want to move this panel next to the toolbar. Drag this layer and stack it to the toolbar. When you see the highlight on the toolbar, let it go. Now you have more space for the layer panel. It was a brief intro to the workspace and essentials to get started. In the following lectures, we're going to learn all the essential tools. See you! There is one important thing you have to know. In the earlier lecture, we say that if you pick up any tool, you get related set of options on the toolbar for that specific tool. These are the tools that are visible for us, but there are more that are hidden under each tool. When you see these small arrows on each tool, that means there are more tools in that group. Click and hold on an option to expand all the tools in that group. Then go on top of that option and let it go. For example, you want the paint bucket tool. Click and hold on the gradient tool and let your click go on the paint bucket tool. This way you will get this tool. Let's begin with the major tools. The move tool. The shortcut for that is V. The move tool provides different options and the options are on the option toolbar. Like these are used for aligning the object properly. Let's say this birth text should be in the center according to the document we have. Select the birth text. Selected, I mean click on it and see if this text is highlighted on the layer panel. From the options on the top, click on these three dots. Choose the Align to Canvas. You can align the objects here or you can do that here. This option will align it horizontally in the center and this option will align it vertically on the center. These are aligning it to the left and to the right and these are aligning the text to the top and to the bottom. I'm just going back with Ctrl and Z to go to the original one. The other feature is the transforming feature. Check this Show Transform Controls option and you get these surrounding borders. These enable you to transform the object. We will get to the transforming in the next lectures. For now, just transform as you want. You can resize it and move it. When you're satisfied, click on this tick. Let's explore the Auto Select option. What Auto Select option actually does is, when it is turned off, you can only move the object that is highlighted and selected in the layer panel. For a moment, uncheck it. Let's say we want to move the API text while the birth text is selected in the layer panel. You can see we can't move it anymore. When this option is checked, it allows you to move any object while there's a different layer selected in the layer panel. Check it and now move the API text. You can see it is easily moving. For instance, the birth text is selected in the layer panel, but I can move the day, the balloons, or any other object I have in the canvas. There is a way when you have not checked the auto selected. You can move any object with holding Ctrl or Command on the Mac to enable auto select temporarily. See you in the next lecture. The next important tool to know is the brush tool. The brush tool is accessed from the toolbar right here. The shortcut is B. It is used for painting. Let's create a new layer and start painting. For now, just follow along with me and keep the question for the layers lecture that why we should create a new layer. You will get your answer there. Paint in the document. I know this is not a perfect drawing, but we can call it an evo. Let's go for the brush setting. From the options bar here, you're choosing the size and the hardness. You can change the size right here. What is hardness? It is how much hard you want to have your brush. This is when the hardness is on 0. Let's change the hardness to 100. And this is when the hardness is on 100. You can feel the difference. Now let's go back and delete all of them, or just delete this layer. Select the layer and click on this trash icon to delete it. Now let's create the layer again. There is a shortcut way of resizing your brush. Open bracket, make the size of the brush smaller, and the close bracket increases the size. You can draw a straight line with a brush tool. While you're drawing, when you hold shift and draw, you will get a completely straight line. You can go to this option and change the size, the hardness, and choose a preset, or just right click on the document and choose the size, the hardness, or a preset. Let me choose a preset. Let's choose one from the dry media brushes, like one of these. Now let's go back and delete this line we just drew. I will draw one with it. Let me change the size and make it bigger. You can see it is providing a beautiful preset to draw. I want a straight line here, so I will hold shift and draw from the top to down. Now we know how to paint with a brush tool. Let's figure out what these other options will do. The opacity is how much visible you want to paint. When it is on 100, it is completely visible, like this one. But when the opacity is about 50%, you can see the 50% of what is in the background. Let's change it to 50%. And now let's draw here on the top. You can see the 50% of what is in the background. The flow option. The flow option determines how quickly it gets to 100%. Let's change the opacity back to 100 and figure out what the flow option does. This is when the flow is on 100. Now let's make it 10%. Now let's draw one more. You can see it is not getting quickly to 100%. The smooth option. Smooth option allow you to draw very smooth line even when you are drawing very harsh and shaky. Let's first have the smooth on 0 and draw something. Let me choose a different preset. I will change the hardness to 100. First, let's draw with the 0%. I will make the size smaller. Now when the smooth is on 0, you can see that you're drawing very harsh and shaky. But let's change it to 100%. When you're drawing with 100% of smoothness, you're feeling how smooth it is drawing. If you want to draw with a color, here are the color options. The top one is the foreground color and the bottom one is the background color. You will draw with the foreground color, so you have to set a color for the foreground to draw. I'll choose a red color, then press OK. Now when I paint, I will get a red painting. The text tool is almost the same as the other word processing softwares. Adding text is really simple. This is the text tool, but when you hover over it, there is a written horizontal type tool. That is because it has more types like writing in vertical and horizontal axis. Click in the document to add the text and you're going to get lorem ipsum. It is a sample text. Go to option bar here and choose the font style right here. For example, I'm choosing this font style. This was for choosing the font, and this is the font style. You want to choose it for regular, bold or italic, but it is just providing the regular font style. From here you're choosing the size, and for the better resizing experience you have to drag these keys to the right or to the left. Dragging it to the right side increases the font size, and dragging it to the left side decreases the font size. These are the alignments. You can align it to the left, to the center, or to the right. From here you're choosing the font color. I will choose a white color. Now when you're done with all of these, you can press on this tick icon, but you have a lot more options for experimenting. You can adjust the characters and paragraphs here in the properties panel. But if you don't have this properties panel, you can enable it from the window options, or you can just click on this option to get all of these. You have different options here to explore. Here is the option to set the font size. Here is the gap between two lines, the gap between two characters, the color, and the style like bold, italic, uppercase, and small caps. I encourage you to definitely check all these options. I think you must have the curiosity about the tools. Do you wonder why when you're a child you learn more, but when you grow up you learn a skill not that much easily? One reason I think might be the curiosity. I think this was all about the text tool. You can explore more if you want. Why do we need selections in Photoshop? A selection isolates parts of an image so you can work on that area without affecting the rest of the image. We will discover it more. Let's say we want to have a copy of this spinner. In order to make a copy of it, we have to first select it. There are endless ways to select an object. First, let's start with the rectangle marquee selection tool. The shortcut for this is M. Pick the tool, then drag and define an area over the object to select it. This area is now selected. Now whatever we are doing is affecting only on this area. For example, let's take a brush tool. Let's say when we are painting with the brush tool and accidentally we go out of the selection. But you can see the selection doesn't allow us to do that. It is only painting inside of the selection. Let's go back and this time try to select it with another selection tool. This time we will select it with the elliptical marquee tool. Press Ctrl and D to deselect this one. This is the elliptical marquee tool. Drag and define an area. Now if you want to take a copy of it, you have to select the layer that the spinner is in, then press Ctrl and J or right click on it and say layer via copy. Now you have a copy of it. Bring this layer on the top to see it and drag and move it to the right side. Now you can see you have a copy of it. For now, delete this layer. Select the layer and press on this trash icon. Then say yes to delete the layer. Let me tell you one more time how to take a copy of it. You have to select it with a selection tool like the elliptical marquee tool. Then press Ctrl and J or right click and say layer via copy. But make sure that you're selecting the background color or the photo that you want to take a copy of it. Right click and layer via copy. Then bring it on the top and with the move tool move it to the right. You've taken a copy of it, but that is not professionally done. Let's delete it one more time and select it more professionally. Let's do it with a lasso tool. This is the lasso tool. The shortcut for that is L. Let's start defining the selection area, but first let's zoom in. The lasso tool is providing you a lot of freedom to select an object. Now take a duplicate of it. Select the layer, right click on it and layer via copy. Now bring it on the top and move it more to the right. So we have taken a copy of it, but this is not that much good. Let's try it one more time but with a different selection tool. For now, delete this layer too. Under this group you have lasso tool and polygonal lasso tool. The polygonal lasso tool will define the selection area with straight lines. This is how you're selecting with it. Most of these selection tools have these options here on the top. The first square means adding a simple selection, as we just did. The next one is going to add to the selection. Select it and add to the selection. Let's say we want to add ear to the selection. The next one means subtracting from the selection. Let's say here is an extra part selected, but we don't want to add that, so we will subtract that. The last one is the intersection. The intersect is leaving all the old selection and keeping the intersection of the one you were just creating. As you can see, it has left out all the selection and kept the new selection. This was the polygonal selection tool. Let's press Ctrl and D to deselect it and go with a different selection tool, the magnetic lasso tool. The magnetic lasso tool automatically outlines and identifies anchor points as you outline the image. Make sure this layer is selected and start your selecting process. Let's start from here. Move along the edge of the object and it automatically gets selected. Press Ctrl and J to take a copy of it. Take the layer and move it on the top, then move it to the right side. Now you can see we have done the selection process much better. But there is even the easier selection process. First, let's delete this one. Here is one more group of selection tools. Let's first explore the magic wand. The magic wand is selecting an area based on the color. Let's select the background layer, and when you want to select this background color, you have to click on that color. Now you can see it has selected all the same color. We want to select the yellow color, click on one yellow color. Let me show you the easiest and quickest one, the object selection tool. Choose the object selection tool. Take the object selection tool and move over an object. It will identify each object and highlight that for you. Click on the object and it will automatically get selected in seconds. Here you have it. You can take a duplicate of it and see how precise it was. There is the quick selection tool. This tool allows you to quickly and easily select one area or section of an image. You can add to the selection with it and subtract from the selection. Let's subtract this one from the selection. Let's take a duplicate of it and see how precise it has been. I think that was quick and great. Let me show you another way of selecting objects. Pick any selection tool from the quick selection tool and from the options bar choose select object, but make sure you have selected the right layer. Click on select object. It is automatically selecting objects or regions such as people, cars, pets, sky, water, building, plants, and mountain in an image. There is even a professional and long way of doing it with the pen tool. The pen tool is the same in all softwares. They have the ability of the pen options, like Adobe Illustrator. We will explore this tool more in the next lectures. This short lecture would be about transforming and resizing objects. This is the background and this is just the object. I just selected the object with any selection tool. Next, what I have done was I just duplicated it with Ctrl and J. Next, hold Ctrl and click on the duplicated object. It will select it again. Now unvisible it with clicking on the eye icon. Select the background, go to select, modify, then expand it. I will expand it with 15 pixels. Then press OK. Now fill it with the content aware. To get content aware, hold Shift and press F5. Press OK. Content aware fills a selection with the environment around the selection. I got something like this, which is not perfect. What I would do in this situation is I will select this area, maybe with the lasso tool. Then take the Move tool, Alt Alt and take a copy of it. Drag it more to the center and you will get something like this. Then press Ctrl and D to deselect it. Now I know it is not perfect, but it is good for an example. Let me just go back and start it again. Make the layers visible. Select the object layer and resize it. How to resize it then? The first way is to pick up the Move tool from the toolbar, then click on this Show Transform Controls. You will get these borders around the objects. These borders will control the transforming of the object. Drag any size and make it bigger. You can see it is keeping the object actual ratio. That is because we have this linked option checked. Uncheck it and see what it will do. Now when you will resize, it is not going to maintain the aspect ratio. You can resize it as you want. When you want to rotate it, you have to move further from the corners. Then you will get this arrow shape. It means now you are able to rotate it. Rotate it from any sides you want. If the transforming was what you wanted, you can click on this tick icon. But if you weren't satisfied with what you have done, you can click on this cancel option. Now let's try another way of resizing. Another way of accessing transforming. Uncheck the Shoot Transform Controls and you can be with any tool like the brush tool. Now press Ctrl and T and you will get the transform. What I suggest is to make sure that the link is checked. And resize the object as you want. You can change the height and the width from here on the top. When you right click on an object, you have different options here, but you get these only when you are in a transforming mode. We just know the scaling and the rotation. Let's discover the others. First, let's discover the scale. By dragging each side, you add skewness to the shape. Then distort. Distort is distorting each side or corner. Then we have the perspective. Perspective is changing the perspective of the object. Drag each corner and change the perspectives. You can only change the perspective from the corners. Then we have the warp, and this one is warping the shape. You can drag the shape and warp the shape as you desire. Drag the handles or any part of the shape to distort and modify that area. After all of these, we have the rotations and the flip options. You can explore them yourself, so take the time and explore them by yourself. Follow your curiosity and explore all these tools. Wherever you stuck, let me know, I'll be there to help you. I think it is enough for the transforming tool, and see you in the next video. What are layers? How do they work? And how you can use them to create any design or image you want. In this lecture, we are going to work with layers. It is a design I made some months ago. I thought this could be a good example of layer usage. You can see the layers I've used in this design. So why do we use layers? Because layers are useful because they let you add components to an image and work on them one at a time without permanently changing the original image. For example, we want to move that circle in the background. What should we do? We have to select the object and move it. Did you notice that this circle have a separate layer, which make it flexible and pretty movable? What would happen if we didn't add all these layers? Let me show you by merging all the layers to only one layer. We have to select all the layers, and we have two ways to select layers. The first way is selecting them in a series. Select the top layer, Alt-Shift, and select the last one. Now you can merge all of them. Right click on any layer and click on Merge Layers. Now you have all the layers merged together. Let me go back with Ctrl and Z. Before I show you the advantage of having a layer for every object in your document, let me show you the other way of selecting, which is by holding Ctrl. This time, hold Ctrl and click on each of them. This way of selecting takes a lot of time. This eye icon turns on the visibility and turns it off. When you disable it, you can see the subject, but when you enable it, you can see that in the document. If you want to see only one layer, Alt-Alt and click on the eye icon. Alt-Alt and click once more to bring all the layers' visibility back. Merge all the layers together with Alt, Ctrl, Shift and E. You can see all the layers are merged together. This is the shortcut way of right-clicking all the layers and choosing Merge Layer. Now move this yellow circle. Can you move only the circle? No, you can't. If you move it, all the image is moving because we have only one layer. Move the text. You can't move only the text because you don't have separate layers for each of the component. That is why we must have layers for each object. Go back with Ctrl and Z. You have all the layers and you can move anything you can see in this photo. Now we have all the layers back and we can change and move anything we want in the document. Like we can change the position of this circle without affecting any other layer. Now when we have all these separate layers for each of the component, we can change and modify just that object without affecting any other layer. Next, what we have to know about layers is how to name a layer. As you can see in my layer panels, they are all disorganized and don't have a specific name. Naming them helps you a lot with working with the layers. What helps even more is grouping them. If you want to change this layer name, first you have to see what it is. Click on the eye icon to see what is this. So it is the shadow. Now double click on the layer and name the layer. This is the subject. The next thing to know is how to group them. These texts should be all in a group. Select all the text layers, then click on this group icon, and it will organize all the selected layers in one group. Name the group to text. Select all the background elements. The background here have a lock icon, which means it is not allowing us to change this layer order or name it. You can't change the color mode or the opacity of a locked layer. To unlock it, click on this lock icon. Select the bottom one, Alt Shift, and the top one. Press Ctrl and G, then group it. After that, name it background. Add all the circles in one group. Select the subject and its shadow and group it. See how organized layers you have right now. Click on the chevron and expand all the layers to see what is inside a group. There is a feature in Photoshop to zoom in only on that object of the layer. Hold Alt and click on the layer, and you can see it is zooming to only that object. I think it is enough for this lecture. In the next lecture, we are going to learn about the color modes, opacity, and fill. A blending mode simply tells two layers how to work together to create a combined image. It controls the way two layers interact with each other. We have 6 blend modes. Normal is the default color mode. Darken focuses on dark tones, replaces pixels on the bottom layer if they are lighter than the top, creating darker effects. Lighten focuses on the light tones, replaces pixels on the bottom layer if they are darker than the top, creating brighter effects. Contrast increases contrast, mixes light and dark tones depending on the brightness of the underlying layer. Inversion inverts the colors of the underlying layer. Component uses hue, saturation, and luminosity values from each layer to create more complex blending effects. Normal mode is the default setting, one layer on the top of another layer. The top layer covers the bottom, and the only interaction you can do with it is decreasing the opacity. Multiply. All these modes are doing mostly the same thing. Multiply blend mode is darkening blend mode. It works by multiplying the colors of the layer above with the colors of the layer below. This means that the area that are lighter on the top layer will become darker when blended with a darker color of the bottom layer. And areas that are darker on the top layer will become even darker when blended with a darker color on the bottom layer. If we change the blend mode to multiply, it removes the whites on the top layer and keeps the dark parts. Screen modes. Change the blend mode to screen. All the others in the group are adding similar effect. Screen mode means that light or on the top layer will become even lighter when blended. Conversely, areas that are darker on the top layer will become less dark when blended with a lighter color on the bottom layer. Areas that are black on the top layer will completely disappear, and while areas that are white on the top layer will remain unchanged. Overlay and soft light blend modes are part of the overlay group, but we will not go into specific details about them. It talks about these blend modes in general, mentioning that they increase contrast and hide everything that is 50% gray. Overlay blend modes primarily enhance contrast by manipulating the midtones of an image. 50% gray on the top layer will become transparent and has no effect on the bottom layer. As you can see, this layer is 50% gray, and you can mention there isn't any effect on the bottom layer. If we change it to 60% gray, darker color will make the final image darker, and lighter color will make the final image even lighter. I'm gonna show you the last one, not all of them, because we are not using them at most scenarios, but you can learn them from different sources. My goal is to make you able to create logos and banners with Illustrator and Photoshop. That's why we are not going in depth with these options. Color blending mode. Color blending mode is used for changing colors. Let me create a new layer and call it color. Then change the blending mode to color. Now take a brush, a color you want, like red color. Now if you draw on the top layer, it's going to change the underneath layer color. What are layer styles and how we can use them? For creating stylish text banners, we must know how to use layer styles. Layer styles are the styles you can add on a layer, on a shape, or any text. I want to show you a layer style with this example. To go to layer styles, you can double click on the layer or right click on it and choose blending options. Yes, this is where we add layer styles, a place where we did the blend if. We have all these styles here to the left side. The first one is bevel and emboss. You can add bevel and emboss effect to the text with this. Check it and you notice it has added the effect to the text. You have different options here to work with, the structure and the shading. Change the style to whatever you need. You have a lot of options here to experiment. Down here you're adding the shading. Here you're changing the angle, the glass counter, the highlight modes and the highlight color, the shading modes and the shadow color. You can determine how much opacity you want for each of them. Like we can add a different color for the highlight. I'm gonna choose a yellow color. Or you can change it to any other color you want. Then there is the stroke. The stroke adds a border around the layer. It's really useful in designing. You can change the size here. Here you're changing the stroke position. You want it inside, outside, or in the center. You can change the blending mode for this style. Here you're changing the color. Now let's uncheck these styles and experiment the other styles. We have inner shadow here. Inner shadow adds a shadow inside the layer. You can see the layer styles you're adding here in the box, but that's even better to see it on the layer. So make sure you have checked this preview option. Just experiment with these options until you get what you want. Change the angle, the opacity, or whatever you want. I'll add some photos for you as a project so you can try creating them with Adobe Photoshop. Then we have the inner glow. The inner glow adds glow inside the layer, as you can notice in the text. The color overlay is simply just changing the color. We have the gradient overlay. Uncheck the color overlay to see what gradient overlay is doing. The color overlay, gradient overlay, and pattern overlay or adding an overlay to the layer. The outer glow is mostly the same as the inner glow, but it is affecting the outside of the layer. The drop shadow is adding a shadow underneath the layer. Change the opacity here, the angle here, the distance, spread size, and the quality here. You can change the light, where the light is coming and where the shadow falls here in the angle. This was a very short introduction to these styles. Now let's have a small project for adding a beautiful effect to the text. Before everything, add another copy of this background layer on the top of the text layer. Press Ctrl and J to duplicate it, then put it on the top of the text layer. Now it is gone, but that is what we want. Add one more brightness and contrast adjustment layer. Change the brightness to something darker. I want this adjustment layer to affect just on top of the text layer. We have the clip mask, and clipping mask is doing the same thing. So over between these two layers, Alt Alt and click between them. So this adjustment layer only affects the under layer of it, not all the layers. Again, clip this layer to the text layer. Over between them, Alt-Alt, and click between them. You can see this effect is added only to the text. These top layers are affecting only the text because they are clipped masked to this text layer. Now, if I change the brightness of this layer, it is only affecting on the text layer. Let's add more effects on the text layer. Double click on the text layer. Add an inner shadow to the text. You can see the effect is added to the text, and you can also customize it to make it even more realistic. To make it even more realistic, add a bevel and emboss to the text. Before everything, reset it to default. Change the style here to outer bevel. You can also change the direction here. I'm going to change the direction to the up. Make sure that you're unchecking the use global light. You can choose the color for the highlight and determine how much opacity you want to affect on the layer. The shadow doesn't really matter in this case. The funniest part is that the text is pretty changeable. You can change the text. So that was about the layer styles. I put this project there in the curriculum so you can work with it. But I'm asking you to do more exercise. I'll add more reference images so you can try them. Opacity and fill. What are they doing and what are the difference between them? They are both used for determining the amount of visibility of a layer. Opacity will change the transparency of everything that is in the selected layer, while fill is changing the transparency of whatever is filling the layer, but will ignore any effect that have been applied to it. Let me illustrate that with an example, but before that, I want to walk you through the blend if. I have this wall as a background. On the top of that, I have a layer called painting. I want this painting to look it is painted on the wall. What should I do to get this effect? As you can notice in the painting, it is the white background, which we have to get rid of. We can do that with changing the color mode. We will learn about the color modes later in the next lectures. For now, just choose multiply or one of the following in the group. These color modes are going to remove the whiteness of a layer to interact with the underneath layer. You can see all the whites are removed from the layer, and it is looking like it's painted on the wall, but this isn't looking realistic, is it? Let's make it more realistic. What we can do is to keep the painting on the wall, except on the whites between each block. For that, we have to use blend if. Double click on the layer or right click on it and choose blending options. We are about to learn the layer styles in the coming lessons, but now we have to know what is blend if. These are the blend if options. We can blend on the current layer or we can blend on the underlying layer. Did you get it? If not, let's look at it. This is our painting and we want to remove any parts of the painting where there is any whiteness in the underlying layer. Dragging the dark slider means removing anything in this layer based on any dark spot in the background layer. Drag it to the right and see. It is removing the painting from the dark areas of the background. But we want the reverse. Drag the white slider to the left and it is removing everything on the layer regarding to the whites of the underlying layer. Now, is it realistic? Of course not. Why? Because it is too harsh. But there is a way. Alt and click on the slider. It splits out into two sliders. If you drag this to the left, it softens the edge and the overall blending. Alt and click on the slider. Now drag the right slider and drag it all the way to the right. Then after that, press OK. What I really like about it is when you do the blend if, you can resize it, move it, or do any changes, but it is still blending based on the background. So this was the blend if. Now let's check out the blend if of the current layer. It is almost doing the same. First, let's change the painting layer setting to how it was. This icon here means that it is blended. For now, let's remove it. Right click on it and say clear layer styles. It is back to how it was at the beginning. Double click on the layer to open the blending option. This time, we want to remove the whiteness. This time we want to remove the whiteness of the layer itself, not based on the underlying layer, but based on the current layer. Drag this right slider to the left. Alt and click on the slider and split it out into two sliders. Now drag the right slider and move it more to the right. For removing the darkness of the current layer, do the reverse. Drag the dark slider to the right and split it out. This is how it works. Let's go back. This was the blend if, but now let's discover the opacity and fill. Hide the painting layer and turn the visibility on for the text layer. Drag the opacity to the right or to the left to change the opacity of this text. You can change the opacity by dragging it or changing it from the slider. The opacity controls the transparency of a layer. A layer with 1% of opacity is nearly transparent, while a layer with 100% opacity is opaque. Change the fill. Maybe they are the same. Let me make that obvious. Fill will change the transparency of whatever is filling the layer, but it will ignore any effects that have been applied to it. Let me show you what does it mean by ignoring any effect. Double click on the text layer to open the blending options. From the styles list, choose any of them. I will choose drop shadow. It will drop a shadow for the text. Now click on the drop shadow. You can't see what it has done. That is because the opacity is 35% and the mode is set to multiply. Multiply doesn't affect on the white areas. Drag the opacity all to the right. You can change the angle of the shadow right here. Change the distance and the size here, then press OK. We have a layer with effects applied to it. How do we know effects are applied? When you see the FX here, it means that you have added effects to it. The effects that we have added to it is listed here under the effects. We have added drop shadow. If you click on it, you will go to drop shadow options. Now you're able to modify the settings as you want. I will press cancel. Let's change the opacity now. Drag it to 0%. Yes, it has made it 100% transparent without ignoring any effects. Now let's change the fill. Drag it to 0%. Look at that. The text itself is transparent, but the effect is still there. This is the difference between these two. You can even add a blend F to the text, and believe me, you will make it more realistic. Maybe you got it. I will upload this project file for you to work with it. After that, take the time and create something yourself with your own creativity. Adjustment layers are most used layers in Photoshop. They're used to make changes to the layer without distracting or changing the actual layer. They are used to adjust a specific part of an image or an entire image. How you can add adjustment layer? The first way of adding a new layer is to go to Layer and New Adjustment Layers. From the menu, choose the one that you're looking for. The next way of adding an adjustment layer is to go to Window and from here choose Adjustments. Now you have the adjustment presets here. These adjustment presets are like the filters in your mobile phone. Here at the bottom you have all the adjustment layers. Finally, you can access the adjustment layers by clicking on this icon here at the layer options. I prefer to add a new adjustment layers from here. We have all the adjustment layers here. We have solid color, gradient and pattern, and all of them are used to fill the canvas. For example, we want to add a color to the canvas. From the adjustment layers, choose a new solid color. Now you can pick out any color, then press OK. Before we go for the other adjustment, let me just introduce you with the layer mask. A layer mask is when you want to add an adjustment layer to just effect on a specific selected area. Let me illustrate that with an example. First, let's delete this solid color. Let's say we want to change the dress color of this girl. We could do that with the UN Saturation Adjustment layer. Here is the properties for the adjustment layers. If the properties window is looking really small for you here, you can drag it outside of this menu. And now you have a wider window. Here, the EU is changing the color. You can drag this slider and change the color. But as you can see, it is changing the scale color as well, which we have to avoid. The saturation determines how much of that color you want to have. Then there is the lightness. The lightness specifies how much dark or light you want to add this color. The lightness specifies how much dark or light you want this to be. So in order to change the dress color properly, we have to add a new layer mask. When we are adding an adjustment layer, it has mask itself. This white rectangle here means that it has a layer mask. The mask is really interesting to work with. When you click on it, the color changes to black and white. That's because it is working only with these two colors. The black color hides and the white color adds. What do I mean by hiding and adding? Let's take the brush tool. As you can see, this adjustment is added to all the layers. But we don't want this to be affected on the skin color. So what should we do? We have to hide this from this skin color. We can hide it with the black color. Make sure that here is selected black and draw on the part that you don't want this to affect on. Press X and now add these colors to the adjustment layer. We did that, but that's not the really effective way. The better way of changing the color is to first select the cloth. Let's first delete this adjustment layer. Let's first select the area that we want to add that color to. Now, while it is selected, add the UN saturation adjustment layer. When you add it, it automatically creates a layer mask. Now you're able to change the color. You can add one more adjustment layer. Select the next area. I want to select the art. Now you can add one more adjustment layer. I will add another UN saturation and change the color of the art. You can click on the colorize to just simply select the color that is in the slider. Like I want to add this blue color. Here is the brightness and contrast. It is used to add brightness and contrast to the layer. At the bottom of all the adjustment layers properties, there is a clipping mask icon. Just keep in mind that it is adding the effect to only the under layer. If it is not checked, the adjustment layer effect on all the underneath layers. You can click here or Alt and click between the layers. This way, you can add the clipping mask. We have had a lecture about the clipping mask, and you can refer back to that video and see what is clipping mask. So that is the best of all the adjustment layers. All of them are adding an adjustment to the under layers, or if you clip them, they only affect on the under layer. I'm not gonna go through all the adjustment layers because they need more clarification and explanation. I'll be providing a resource for you if you wanted to have a deeper look at the adjustment layers. While you're working with Photoshop, most of the time you need to zoom in and out and navigate here and there. For this purpose, you can use the zoom tool. You can find the zoom tool over here in the toolbar. The shortcut for that is Z. When you pick up this tool, then you will select the area that you want to zoom in. For example, I want to zoom here, so I will select the area and zoom in. If you want to zoom even more, you will select the area again. For example, I want to zoom in this zoom text. Select the area and then you will zoom in. But what should we do while we want to zoom out? For this purpose, we will Alt Alt on the keyboard, then click. If you think it is taking a long time, you can Alt Ctrl and press 0 to fit the image to the window size. Let me tell you something, that there is no need to pick the zoom tool to zoom in and out. You can be with any tool. For example, I am with the move tool. And when I want to zoom in, I would just easily Alt Ctrl and spacebar. Then I will select the area and easily I'm zooming in. And that was about the zoom tool. It is a crucial tool while you're working on your designings. Don't get stuck in one box. You can't limit yourself to use only one application software to design banners. There are various ways you can create your banners. I'll show you how you can use templates to create your banners, but first, you have to know how to create one yourself. One from scratch with your own imaginations. That is why here in this lecture, we are going to use Adobe Photoshop to create banners. You're able to create a document with the same setting that we faced in Adobe Illustrator. Click on New File to create your new file. You might not have these recent items here if you haven't created any file before. For the first time, you have to choose one from the top templates. I'm choosing Photo. Currently, this template size is measured by centimeters. Click here and change the measurements to pixels. Here, you will name your document. I'll name it YouTube Banner. YouTube Banner size was 2560 pixel width and 1440 pixels height. Add the resolution 3 point per inch and leave all the other settings as they are and say create. My workspace is definitely different from yours. Let's make sure we both have the same environment. Go to Window, Workspace and change the workspace to Essentials. Yet my Essentials workspace isn't the same as yours. So reset your Essentials and now we would get the same workspace. Drag this layer panel and bring it to the left. Then stack it here to the toolbars. This way you would get a lot more space for your layers. Adobe Illustrator and Photoshop are very similar, but in Photoshop we have to deal more with layers. We will add grids here as well to guide us on the designing process. You can show and hide them with Ctrl and R. Let's go for the banner template. For the banner template, you have to go to your browser. Search for YouTube banner size template. Click on image to see the result just for image. Pick up one from the templates and when the image is loaded, right click on it and copy the image. Switch back to Adobe Photoshop and paste it here. The process of creating guides here is the same as Illustrator. Click on ruler, drag it and align it between these two template sizes. Do the same for the next one. Create guides from the bottom and top. Scroll to the right and add the guides here as well. We don't need this background photo anymore, so delete the template layer. Click on this trash icon to delete it. Go back to the browser and let's find a background photo. Write for black interior background and you will get these amazing backgrounds. Like this one. I want to download it. But when we want this one to be in high resolution, we have to download it from the main source. So I'll click on this link to go to freepik.com. If you're downloading from Freepik, you're using free photos. Freepik provides different templates and free stock photos. I'll explore more here to find a better one. This one is looking great. I'll click on it. From the download, you have different variations to download. For me, the small one works the best, so I'll download it. When it is downloaded, drag it and drop it in Adobe Photoshop. Resize it and match it to the corner of the document. Click on the tick to apply the result. We will draw another rectangle on top and use it as an overlay. I'll add one more guide in the center to use it to draw a curved line. Take the Move tool and click outside the shape. Now take the Pen tool and start adding your anchor points. Click once here. In the middle, click and drag, and at the same time Alt-Shift to keep the line curviness smoothly. Add one more anchor point here in the bottom, but align it to the guide. Then finally close the shape. On the top here, click on the shape to create this path a shape for you. It is time to add our logo. For now, I'm not dealing with the size and position of this, just using it to steal colors with a color picker. I like the colorizing process here in Photoshop more than in Illustrator. It is really easy for me to use colors here. For instance, I want to use this blue color for the shape we just drew. This is the shape layer, and if I double click on this small square here, I can easily pick any color. The good point is wherever I click, that color will be implemented to the shape. For the black rectangle color, it would be the same. Double click on the square of the shape layer, then click on the color you want to steal. Let's check out the orange one. I'm thinking of reversing the colors. I want to use the blue one here and the orange one to the curve one. Maybe you noticed that stroke color around them. So make sure you're removing the stroke. Click on the shape tool from the toolbar, expand the stroke slider and drag it all the way down. Do the same for the rectangle. Click on the layer, expand the stroke slider and drag the slider all the way down. Change the rectangle mode to overlay and you will get this beautiful overlay effect. Hide the logo layer for now and focus more on the base design of the banner. Click on this eye icon and hide the layer. There is something wrong with the orange shape I drew. Guess what? The curviness of the shape is ending when the safe zone starts. What I mean is, it should be more in the center and cover some small area of the safe zone. We will refine it with the help of Move tool. Move it more to the right. Take the Pen tool and expand the shape more. Alt-Control and the Pen tool shape change to the cursor. Then click on the shape and you can see the anchor points now. Alt-Control and at the same time drag the anchor points and move them out of the document. Alt-Control and move it. This one was the pattern we built for the brand inhaler lectures. I drag it and add it to the document. Resize it if you think it needs to look bigger. For me it is enough, so I'll tick it. Most of the time we don't use the patterns to be completely visible. Drag the opacity to about 15 or 14%. What would you do if you want this pattern or any other design to just effect on one layer? This is how you do it. You have to drag this layer on top of the layer you want to add effect to. For me, it is the orange shape. I'll drag it on top of the shape, then Alt-Control and click between these two layers. Look at this, it is just affecting the bottom layer. The pattern is masked to the under shape. This is how you do clipping mask in Adobe Photoshop. Draw a circle layer with holding Shift and Alt to draw it from the center and keeping the ratio size the same. Remove the stroke color, make it 0 and change the color to white. Now we can align it in the center vertically. Select the circle layer, hold Ctrl and click on the background layer. Pick up the Move tool and click on this icon to align it vertically. Now make the logo visible, then select the layer and press Ctrl and J to duplicate it. Hide the top layer and select the bottom logo layer. Press Ctrl and T to transform it. Make it smaller in the size to fit in the circle. Unhide the other logo layer and move it more to the right. Now double click on the layer to open the blending option of the layer. From the advanced blending, drag the fill to 0. You might see it has completely hid the logo, but that's what we want. Move the layer style window more to the right, then check the drop shadow. Drag the opacity to the right and change the opacity more. With this one, you can change the angle of the shadow. Change the shadow size, then press OK. You can see the effect is applied really well and it has given our design a better look. If the background color doesn't satisfy your desires, you can change the color of the rectangle. Do you need a darker color? Drag it down. If you need a lighter one, drag it up. I don't like this shirt to be really visible in the save zone, so I'm resizing it and making it more bigger. Then I'll drag it down more. This guide is really annoying me here, so I'm moving it to the left out of the document. It is time to add the text. Pick up the text tool and click somewhere to add the text. Move the text more to the center, then change the text. I'm changing it to HR Professionals. Then when it's done, I'll tick it, resize it and reposition it if it is needed. The font is Monstrat and the style is set to bold. I'm happy with this, so I'm not changing it. Duplicate the layer and pick up the Move tool. Move it down with holding Shift and the bottom arrow key on your keyboard. I'm changing this text to Academy. Now it is time to add the icons. Social media icons, Facebook, X, Instagram and LinkedIn. We are letting our audience know that we are available in these platforms. Switch back to the web browser and open freepik.com. We are catching these icons from here. Write Facebook icon here in the search bar and choose the type to icon. Click on search and find one that suits best with your brand style. I'm selecting these black roundish icons and I'll be using this style of icon for all the other social media platforms. Click on the green download icon and choose the PNG format. The SVG format requires for premium subscription. All we need is a PNG format, so click on it and download it. It gets downloaded. From the downloads area, drag it and drop it in Photoshop. You can resize it here. Click here and with holding Shift and bottom arrow button, decrease the size. Also have this linked button active. Remember to keep all the icon sizes the same. So I'm resizing it to 62 pixels. And this 62 pixels will be applied to every other icons. Tick this icon and switch back to the web browser. Close this window and search for LinkedIn. Try to download the same style icon. Download the PNG format. Drag it from downloads and drop it in Photoshop. Now you can resize it with this top option, or you can easily just use your mouse to resize it. With your mouse, keep the height and width to 62 pixels. The same process is for Instagram. Download it and drag it to Photoshop. Resize it to 62 pixels. You can see the width and height here. It is time to go for the X platform. I search for X in the search bar, but I'm not getting the result I want. So I write in the search bar X Twitter to find it. This one is the same style, so I'll download it, drag it from downloads to Adobe Photoshop and make it 62 pixels. I'll distribute them with the same space and make them closer to each other. To distribute them more professionally, select all of them, and from the top here, click on these three dots here to expand the more options. Here is distribute and spacing. Click on this one to distribute them vertically. Also check this align to selection from here. How it is working is it aligns the middle icons between the first one and the last one, which for me is Facebook and X. Can you notice the difference between these icons? Yes, the X icon have a white color inside while the others don't. They have a transparent color. To remove this white in between, double click on the Layer Smart Object icon. A new document will be open, and if we do any changes here, they are easily implemented to the banner document. There is a way to remove the whites by using the magic eraser, but it is not an effective way. Let me show you why it is not an effective way. Delete the whites in the center with magic eraser. Save it and close it. You can see it has the harsh white edges. And now you're waiting to know what is the effective way. Double click on the smart object of the layer and it opens up. What you're going to do is to select it with a color range selector. The color range selector selects a specific color which enables you to change or delete a specific color. Go to select, color range, and now take a specific color in the document as a sample. Drag the fuzziness all the way up and press OK. Delete it, save it, and close it. I'll take one more duplicate of the Academy text, write down the slogan. I went back to ChatGPT and asked for another slogan because my client asked me to change it. You have to be pretty flexible with your decision. This text would obviously be smaller in size than the others. Make it smaller and change the text. Let me justify the text with a top text and change the font style to medium. The design is almost done. What is left is to add all the layers in their group. We are doing it for future simplicity in the changing process. Select all icons and group them. Select the top one, Alt Shift and the bottom one, then press Ctrl and G to group them. Select all the text and group them too. Name it text. Group each of them, logo, background, all in their specific group. Delete this white background here. Maybe you're thinking of changing the social media colors, but you don't have any idea how to do that. Here is the way. Right click on icons group and check the blending option. From the options choose color overlay. And boom, see how easy it is to change all the icon colors in a group. Now there are unlimited possibilities of selecting a color for your icon. Change them to any color you prefer. I'll take a sample of the brand color to have the icons in the brand color. At last, I'm going for a final refinement and check if there was any need to change something. I'll bring the slogan more in the center. I want to add one more change to the logo circle. So I'll take one more duplicate of the layer, with Ctrl and J. Resize it and make the size bigger using the arrow keys. Drag it down under the original ellipse shape. Change the circle color to one of the brand colors, or if you prefer, you can change it to any color that matches with your design. Guess what? It is not final yet. The last thing to add is, the final last one is to add another rectangle that covers up all the maximum desktop zone and the safe zone. Remove the stroke color and change the fill of the layer to 0%. We are adding the same effect we did earlier to the logo in the background. Double click on the layer and add a drop shadow to it. Add the desirable amount of shadow, then press OK. I'm just doing it to separate the sizes. It will add a beautiful effect to the design if anyone is watching the banner with a large screen. And this is the practice time. Firstly, you have to create the same banner as I did. The next challenge is to create your brand banner with your own creativity. Ready yourself to design your own banners. The concept of making every banner responsive for all the social media is the same here in Photoshop as in Illustrator. In Illustrator, we add to create artboards for every banner. Here, we will create a new document for every banner. Then just simply duplicate them to the new document. Go to File and say New Document. Let's first create one for LinkedIn. Name it LinkedIn Banner. The width is 1584 by 396. But make sure that it is checked on pixels. Then press Create. Now fit it to the document with Ctrl and 0 and create a rectangle that is 360 pixels, then stack it to the left side. Click here in the background and write 360 in the width, then just press OK. Now change the fill to any color and remove the stroke color. Drag it all the way down. Move it more to the right and stack it to the left side. Now create a guide to the right side of the rectangle. Drag it from the ruler and stack it to the right side of the shape. Select the shape and delete it. Go to the YouTube banner and select all these layers. Right click on them and from here choose duplicate layers. Now change the destination from here to the LinkedIn banner document. Then just simply press OK. Check it out, all of them are duplicated here and they are pretty changeable. Now just resize them to fit to the document. Press Ctrl and T and resize them. You can resize them from the top here. And make sure that this linked icon is checked. It will maintain the aspect ratio. Select the height or the width, then Alt Shift and down arrow key on your keyboard. Try to keep it in the center. After resizing, press on this tick icon. I let all the others as they are, but just do a few refinement. I will move this orange shape here to the right. You can choose it from the layers, it would be in the background. Expand the background group, then select the orange shape. Now press Ctrl and T, right click on it and choose Flip Horizontal. Now drag it and move it to the right side. You can move it with holding Shift. I moved this orange shape here to the right side because we have the profile logo here and these two logos can't be on top of each other. Select this logo, the one which is used as an overlay. Choose this layer from the logos group here, press Ctrl and T and move it to the left. Select all of these logo layers except the big one, the overlaid one. I'm selecting them with holding Shift and then moving them to the right side. Press Ctrl and T and move them to the right side. I think I have to hide this layer. You can change any parts that you want in your design. I felt I had to change all these, so I did it. But the main concept of the banner is the same. Now let's go for the Facebook banner. Create a new document, press Ctrl and N to create a new document. Name this one Facebook banner. Change the width here to 820 by 360. This is the Facebook banner size. Then just press create. Now you know the steps. Go to one of these documents, the LinkedIn or the YouTube banner. I'm going to LinkedIn. Then what I would do is I would select all of these, right click on them and choose duplicate layers. Then change the destination document to Facebook banner. Finally press OK. And see that they are duplicated here to the new document. Press Ctrl and T for all of them. Then move them and resize them. I think this much resizing is looking good. Then click on the tick. I'll move this logo overlay more to the right, just like this one. Now after I'm done and satisfied with my design, I'll export them. To export them, you can go to File, Export and Export As. Choose the format here. Make sure that it is set on JPG. Then click on Export and choose the destination. I have exported them earlier, but I will do once again to show you. Press Save and it is exported. Go to the LinkedIn banner and press Ctrl Shift Alt and W to go straightly to the Export As window. Then just simply press Export and choose the destination. Then press Save. And that is it. This was how you can make your banners responsive for all social media platforms.